You've got mail. 3 words that defined a generation. At its peak, AOL was worth $200 billion. More than Disney, more than Ford, more than most countries. Half of all American internet traffic flowed through AOL servers. 30 million people check their AOL inbox every single day. And then it all collapsed. The company that introduced America to the internet became a punchline. But here's what nobody talks about. What happened to those 30 million email accounts? What happened to the messages, the buddy lists, the digital lives we abandoned? The answer is darker than you think. Chapter 1. Before AOL, the internet was terrifying. To understand why AOL conquered America, you have to understand what the internet was like before AOL made it friendly. In the early 1990s, getting online was a nightmare. You needed technical knowledge. You needed to configure protocols manually. You needed to understand things like TCP/IP, FTP servers, and command line interfaces. The internet existed, but it was for academics and computer nerds, not normal people. Then came AOL, America Online. The name said everything. This was the internet for regular Americans. No technical knowledge required. Pop in the CD-ROM, follow the instructions, and suddenly you were online. Your grandmother could do it. Your technophobic uncle could do it. Anyone with a phone line and a computer could do it. AOL wasn't really the internet. It was a walled garden, a private network that happened to connect the internet. You had AOL email, AOL chat rooms, AOL news, AOL shopping. Everything was curated, controlled, and safe. The real internet was still out there, wild and confusing, but AOL users didn't need to deal with it. They had everything they needed inside the walls. This was genius. Americans didn't want the internet. They wanted what the internet could do for them. Email, chat, information without the complexity. AOL delivered exactly that, and America responded by signing up in unprecedented numbers. Chapter 2. The Disk Invasion. AOL's marketing strategy was legendary in its absurdity. They mailed CDs to everyone, and I mean everyone. In the 1990s, you couldn't escape AOL installation discs. They arrived in your mailbox constantly. They fell out of magazines. They came with your pizza delivery. They were bundled with cereal boxes. At trade shows, they were handed out like candy. Every American household received an average of 1 AOL disc per month for years. AOL spent over $300 million on this campaign. They manufactured so many discs that at one point, 50% of all CDs produced worldwide were AOL installation discs. Not music CDs, not software CDs, AOL discs. Half of global CD production. The discs offered free trial hours, first 10 hours free, then 50 hours, eventually unlimited time. The strategy was simple. Get the software onto every computer in America. Make signing up effortless. Remove every barrier between a potential customer and that sweet subscription fee. It worked beyond anyone's expectations. By 1997, AOL had 8 million subscribers paying $20 per month. By 2000, that number exploded to 23 million. By 2022, at the absolute peak, 30 million Americans paid AOL for internet access. 30 million households, $20 each every single month. Do the math. AOL was printing money. If you ever used those free trial hours and then forgot to cancel, yeah, AOL was counting on that. You need to be subscribed to this channel. We're documenting the internet everyone lived through, but nobody preserved. Hit subscribe, tap that bell, and smash the hype button if you're enjoying this. Now let's talk about the moment AOL stopped being a company and became a cultural phenomenon. Chapter 3. You've Got Mail. The sound changed everything. That robotic voice announcing, "You've got mail," became the most recognized audio clip in America. It meant connection. It meant someone was thinking about you. In a world before smartphones, before constant connectivity, hearing those 3 words was genuinely exciting. Email itself was revolutionary. Before AOL, communicating with someone far away meant expensive long-distance phone calls or waiting days for letters. Suddenly, you could send a message to anyone with an email address and they'd receive it in seconds, for free, as many messages as you wanted. The implications took years to fully absorb. AOL made email accessible to normal people. Your address was simple, your username at AOL.com. No complicated domain names to remember. And everyone was on AOL, so everyone could reach everyone else. It was the closest thing to a universal communication system America had ever seen. The cultural impact was massive. You've Got Mail became a movie title. Email etiquette became a topic of national discussion. People debated whether email was too informal for business, whether it would kill letter writing, whether constant connectivity was good for society. Questions we're still asking, but about different technologies now. And then there were the screen names. This was the first time most Americans created a digital identity. You had to choose a name that would represent you online. Some people used their real names, most people didn't. The creativity and cringe was unlimited. Chapter 4. The screen names we can never forget. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Your first AOL screen name was probably embarrassing. Everyone's was. This was uncharted territory. Nobody knew the rules because there weren't any rules yet. Soccer Star 1998, XX Dark Angel, Hot Stuff For You 2NV, Skater Boy 2001. These weren't just usernames, they were identities. You picked something that felt cool when you were 14, and then you were stuck with it as your primary email address for years. The numbers were particularly brutal. AOL required unique usernames, and popular names were taken immediately. If you wanted Mike, too bad. You were Mike47832. That number followed you everywhere. Every email you sent announced that you were the 47,832nd Mike to sign up for AOL. And people use these addresses for everything. Job applications, college admissions, professional correspondence. Somewhere in America, a hiring manager received a resume from Princess Sparkle 99 at AOL.com and had to take it seriously. Somewhere else, a college rejection letter was sent to XX Pussy Destroyer 422 xxaol.com. The early internet had no concept of professional online presence because no one knew it would matter. The worst part, these accounts still exist. Abandoned, but not deleted. Your embarrassing 2002 username is still out there, tied to whatever information you gave AOL when you signed up. We'll get to what happened to all that data later. It's not good. Chapter 5. The buddy list revolution. Before Facebook friends, before Twitter followers, before any social network existed, there was the AIM buddy list, and it changed how humans related to each other. AIM, AOL Instant Messenger, came bundled with every AOL account. It let you see when your friends were online and chat with them in real time. The buddy list was a permanent sidebar showing everyone you knew, sorted by who was currently available. Green meant online, yellow meant Idaho, gray meant offline. You learned to obsess over these colors. The away message became an art form. When you stepped away from the computer, you could leave a message for anyone who tried to reach you. This sounds mundane now, but it was revolutionary. It was the first status update, the first way to broadcast your mood to everyone who cared about you. Every angsty teenager in America learned to express themselves through carefully curated AIM statuses. The buddy list also created new social dynamics. You could see who was online at 2 a.m. You could notice that your crush was always idle when you messaged them. Were they ignoring you or actually away? You could tell when someone blocked you because they'd vanish from your list entirely. Digital relationships developed their own rules, their own anxieties, their own heartbreaks.
Chapter 6. The Chat Room Wild West. AOL chat rooms were the Wild West of the internet, and they were absolutely insane. The concept was simple. Public rooms where anyone could talk to anyone about anything. AOL organized them by topic: sports, music, hobbies, local areas. In theory, this would create communities of like-minded people having pleasant conversations. In reality, chat rooms were chaos. You'd enter a room and immediately see 50 conversations happening simultaneously, most of them incomprehensible. ASL, age, sex, location, the universal chat room greeting, strangers hitting on strangers, arguments about nothing, inside jokes you'd never understand. It was beautiful and terrifying. The romance rooms were legendary. People genuinely tried to find love in rooms with names like Romance Connection and Singles Chat. Some succeeded. There were real AOL marriages. Real families started because two people met in a chat room. Most attempts failed spectacularly, lost in a sea of creeps, catfish, and people who typed in all caps. And then there was the darker side. AOL struggled constantly with predators using chat rooms to target minors. The anonymity that made chat rooms fun also made them dangerous. Parents who didn't understand the internet had no idea their kids were chatting with strangers. It was a nationwide experiment in unsupervised digital interaction, and the results were mixed at best. Chapter 7. The $200 billion moment. By 2000, AOL was the most valuable media company in history. Their market capitalization hit $200 billion. To put that in perspective, Disney was worth $60 billion. Ford was worth $45 billion. AOL was worth more than both combined. They had 30 million paying subscribers, each sending $20 monthly. They had the most visited website in America. They had the dominant instant messenger. They had the email addresses of half the country. They were the internet for most Americans. What could possibly go wrong? What went wrong was hubris on a historic scale. In January 2000, AOL announced it was acquiring Time Warner, the media giant that owned HBO, CNN, Warner Bros., and dozens of magazines and cable networks. It was the largest merger in American history, $165 billion. AOL, a company that existed primarily as a dial-up internet provider, was buying one of the oldest and most prestigious media companies in the world. The logic seemed sound at the time. AOL had internet dominance, Time Warner had content. Together, they would create an unstoppable media empire for the digital age. Synergy, convergence, buzzwords that promised a future where everything would be connected and AOL would own it all. It was the worst corporate merger in American history. Chapter 8. The collapse begins. The problem started immediately. AOL and Time Warner were completely different cultures that hated each other on contact. Time Warner executives saw AOL as arrogant tech bros with inflated stock prices and no understanding of real media. AOL executives saw Time Warner as dinosaurs who didn't understand the internet. Both were partially right. Neither could work together. But the bigger problem was reality. AOL's entire business model was about to become obsolete, and no one at the company wanted to admit it. Broadband was coming. Cable internet and DSL offered speeds that made dial-up look ridiculous. AOL's competitive advantage, being the easy way to get online, disappeared when getting online became easy for everyone. Why pay $20 a month for AOL's walled garden when you could pay your cable company and access the entire internet at 10 times the speed? Subscribers started canceling. First a trickle, then a flood. From 30 million at the peak, the number dropped to 25 million, then 20 million, then 15 million. Each lost subscriber was $240 per year in lost revenue. The math was catastrophic. AOL tried to evolve. They offered broadband service. They repositioned as a content company. They launched advertising initiatives. Nothing worked. The core product, dial-up internet access, was dying, and there was nothing to replace it. Chapter 9. The death spiral. The stock price told the story. At the merger, AOL Time Warner was worth over $350 billion. By 2002, it was worth $70 billion. 2 years later, $50 billion. The company that was once more valuable than Disney and Ford combined became worth less than either. In 2003, AOL was dropped from the company name. It became just Time Warner again. The parent company so embarrassed by AOL that they removed it from the door. The acquisition that was supposed to define the future of media became something to hide. Executives fled. The CEO who orchestrated the merger was pushed out. Investigations revealed that AOL had inflated its advertising revenue through questionable accounting. The SEC got involved. Lawsuits multiplied. What had been celebrated as visionary became evidence of fraud and incompetence. By 2009, Time Warner had enough. They spun off AOL as a separate company, finally cutting the tumor loose. The spinoff valued AOL at approximately $3.2 billion. Remember when it was worth $200 billion? They'd lost 98% of their value. 98%. $200 billion gone. AOL limped forward as an independent company, pivoting to digital advertising and content. They bought Huffington Post, they bought TechCrunch, they tried to become something new. In 2015, Verizon acquired AOL for $4.4 billion, a fraction of its former glory, but at least an exit. Chapter 10. The 30 million abandoned accounts. Here's the question no one asks. What happened to those 30 million email accounts? When AOL collapsed, most subscribers didn't carefully close their accounts and migrate their data. They just left. They stopped paying for dial-up when they got broadband. They got Gmail or Yahoo addresses. They abandoned their AOL accounts like empty houses, full of old messages and forgotten passwords. AOL never deleted these accounts. They couldn't. There were too many and some users still paid for premium features, so the account sat there. Millions of digital ghosts, frozen in time, full of the emails we sent in 2003 and the buddy lists we never said goodbye to. The data is still there. Your old AOL account almost certainly still exists. If you can remember your password or the answers to security questions you set 20 years ago, you might be able to log in right now. The messages are waiting. The screen name is waiting. Your digital history preserved in amber while the world moved on. But here's the darker reality. You're not the only one who can access that data. Chapter 11. The privacy nightmare. Those abandoned accounts became a security disaster. Think about what's in an old email account. Password reset links, personal conversations, financial information from 20 years ago, family photos, love letters, breakup fights, everything you said when you didn't know the internet was forever. Hackers love old accounts. They're gold mines. Security questions like what's your mother's maiden name were set decades ago, and the answers are probably on Facebook now. People use the same passwords everywhere. Breaking into an old AOL account could give access to bank accounts, social media, everything. And AOL, passed from Time Warner to Verizon to Yahoo to Apollo Global Management, has changed hands so many times that user data has been copied and migrated across multiple corporate entities. Who has access to your old emails now? Honestly, it's hard to know. The spam problem became legendary. Inactive AOL addresses became targets for relentless spam. If you ever tried to check your old account, you'd find thousands of unread messages, none of them real. Your abandoned inbox became a garbage dump for every scammer on the internet. Some of those accounts were hacked and used to send spam to everyone in your old address book.
I'm stuck in London and need money. Emails came from accounts belonging to people who hadn't logged in for years. Your digital identity was being puppeted without your knowledge. Chapter 12. What AOL got right. It's easy to mock AOL now. The dial-up sounds, the walled garden, the CDs everywhere. But we shouldn't forget what they actually accomplished. AOL brought tens of millions of Americans online for the first time. They took technology that was intimidating and made it accessible. Your grandmother could use AOL. That wasn't true of anything else at the time. They created the first mass-scale digital communities. Chat rooms were chaotic, but they were also genuine human connection. People made friends, people found love, people discovered communities of people like them, which was revolutionary for anyone outside the mainstream. The instant messenger changed communication forever. Real-time text chat is now normal. We have a dozen apps that do it. But AOL pioneered the concept for mainstream users. The buddy list was the first social network. The away message was the first status update. Everything that came after built on what AIM established. And email. Before AOL, email was technical and niche. After AOL, email was how humans communicated. That shift happened because AOL made it simple enough for everyone. We live in an email world, and AOL built that world. Chapter 13, the generation that grew up online. AOL raised the first generation of digital natives. Kids who grew up with AOL developed intuitions about online life that older generations never did and that younger generations take for granted. We learned to type fast because AIM conversations moved fast. We learned to multitask because we were chatting with 5 people while doing homework, while loading a web page that took 3 minutes to appear. We learned how to present ourselves digitally because our screen names and profiles were our first personal brands. We also learned hard lessons. We learned that people online could lie about who they were. We learned that things written digitally could be saved and shared. We learned that online friends were real friends, even if adults didn't understand that. We learned that online bullying hurt just as much as the real kind. This generation, the AOL generation, became the bridge. We remember life before the internet, and we remember the internet's awkward adolescence. We're the translators, explaining to older generations why memes matter, and to younger generations what dial-up sounded like. The skills we learned on AOL, navigating digital spaces, managing online identity, reading between the lines of text communication, became essential life skills. We were the beta testers for digital society, making all the mistakes so future generations could learn from them. Chapter 14, the sound of the internet. Let's talk about the dial-up sound, because it might be the most nostalgic noise in technology history. You'd click connect, and then static, beeps, screeches, weird warbling tones, more static, and finally, if the internet gods were kind, connection. That sound was the internet for millions of people. You heard it every single time you went online. It embedded itself in your brain. The sounds actually meant something. The initial tones were your modem and the ISP's modem negotiating connection speeds. The screeching was data handshake protocols. The warbling was authentication. If you listened long enough, you could tell whether the connection would work just from the sounds it made. And the terror when the sounds went wrong, when the screeching went too long, when it just made noise and never connected, when the connection dropped because someone picked up the phone, the dial-up experience was anxiety as much as technology. Modern kids find this sound fascinating, a literal audio recording of how primitive the internet used to be. For those of us who lived it, the sound triggers something deeper. It's the sound of waiting, the sound of anticipation, the sound of a time when connecting to the internet was an event, not a background assumption. Chapter 15. You've got nostalgia. AOL's legacy is complicated. They were a gatekeeper who kept the internet simple, but also kept it limited. They were a monopoly that got complacent. They were a $200 billion example of how fast technology can make titans obsolete. But for millions of Americans, AOL was the internet. Not a way to access the internet itself. The chat rooms, the emails, the buddy lists, the CDs in the mail. That was online life for a decade. Whatever came after, Google, Facebook, smartphones, none of it would have happened the same way if AOL hadn't taught America to go online first. The "you've got mail" sound still triggers something primal. It's the sound of a simpler internet, before social media toxicity, before constant connectivity, before we learned that the digital world could be just as complicated as the real one. AOL promised a friendly internet, and for a while they delivered. Those 30 million abandoned accounts are time capsules now. Everyone contains the messages we sent when we were younger, the friends we've lost track of, the version of ourselves we barely remember being. The data sits on servers somewhere, preserved and forgotten, waiting for someone to remember the password. $200 billion, 30 million subscribers, the most dominant internet company in American history, and now a punchline, a memory, a dial-up screech that makes millennials feel old. AOL didn't fail because they were bad. They failed because they were too tied to a technology, dial-up, that became obsolete. They saw broadband coming and couldn't adapt. They tried to buy their way into the future with Time Warner and discovered that content and distribution don't automatically mix. They learned that being the biggest doesn't mean being permanent. But before the fall, there was the rise. There was a decade when AOL meant the internet for half of America, when You've Got Mail meant someone cared, when your buddy list was your social network, when the future felt like something you could log into. Somewhere, your old AOL account still exists. The emails you wrote in 2002, the buddy list you abandoned, the screen name you can never live down, it's all still there, waiting, like a time capsule you forgot you buried. Maybe don't try to log in though. Some things are better left as memories, and you really don't want to know how many spam emails are waiting for you. Hit subscribe if you survived the AOL era. Drop a comment with your most embarrassing screen name. We won't judge. And share this with anyone who still remembers what dial-up sounded like. Thanks for watching. If you want more stories about the internet we lost, check out our video on LimeWire, 50 million users, $75 trillion in lawsuits, and the death of free music, the story of how 35,000 Americans got sued for downloading songs. See you there.